Do you guys want to know what it takes to bump the rudder of change in your life, to just start moving in a different direction? Sometimes that can be so frustrating. How can you change something that you've been doing forever and it's just become a habit and it's been there? Well, I want to talk through a strategy, a very technical strategy today with you that large companies employ when they have to change massively big bureaucratic, red tape, political processes. And hopefully you can take some gold nuggets from that and apply it to your personal life of how to change just even simple things that just need correction in your life. My name's Nathaniel Spiers. I'm one of the coaches here at Vision Possible, and our passion is to help your daydream become your day job, to help you bump the rudder in your life, like I said, to start to see change. Whether you've got a vision and you're wanting to take that first step, or whether you're even not sure what your vision is, we have tools for you. If you go over to visionpossible.net, you can learn more about what we do, learn about our offerings, and get access to our Vision Possible Protegé program, which if you haven't already taken advantage of it, it is awesome. For less than the cost of a cup of coffee per month, you can get access to an ever-growing video library of resources that will continue to challenge you and help you grow. So please go check that out, visionpossible.net. Like I said, today we want to talk about something within the process improvement world. So if you're working in an organization or a company, you may have heard of the term I'm about to share with you today and walk you through. But if you're not, I really encourage you, stay tuned to this video and see how you can apply it to your personal life. If an organization, a massive organization like Apple or Google, can change the processes for themselves that literally have been in place for years and years and years and have a continual process improvement environment, you can too. So what I'm going to talk about today is called Dmaic, D-M-A-I-C, okay? And this is a tool used by professional folks who focus on process improvement, specifically those who are certified in Six Sigma. And Six Sigma is a discipline of process improvement. You can get certified in it. A lot of more modern process improvement resources are called Lean or Lean Six Sigma, right? And it includes these teachings along with more agile process improvement methods. But this particular method of process improvement is tried and true. It works, and it's you eat the meat and spit out the bones, right? So you do what works for you. You do what works for the company, but you can slice and dice and pick and choose. But the heart of process improvement always kind of follows this similar approach of D-M-A-I-C, Dmaic, D-M-A-I-C. It stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and then control. And it's a constant loop. It's a constant cycle. Continuous process improvement is the name of the game. It's not like you've gotten to the point where everything in your life, everything in your business is streamlined, it's working, it's functional. There's always constant improvement, and this is the process that you can take from to really torque your life, your business, etc. So I'm going to walk through each one of these briefly, and I want you to think how you can apply it to your personal life, as well as thinking through, if you're in a business environment, how you can apply this to your team, how can you apply this to projects and process improvements. So first, D. D stands for define, okay? Define. Now, before you can even start looking at a problem and thinking through solutions, a lot of times we skip the most obvious step, and that's this. Define what the problem is. Define what the issue is and what needs improvement. And sometimes it's not even an issue. Sometimes there's something that's working well, but you know you can torque it for better performance, right? So define what the goal is. Define the focus that you need to have as you go through this process change. Think through the scope of change. And scope is important because it defines what's in and also what's out of focus. So what are the things that you should be looking at, but what are the things also you need to avoid when they come up in conversation? Think through the motivation for the improvement. What is it that makes this so important? What makes it worth your time. Count the cost up front to ensure that it's worth your time and worthy of your time to make the change. There's a lot of tricks and techniques to do this. There's delighters and satisfiers, and using that approach, right? So looking at your customer segment and saying what would satisfy them, what would delight them, what are things that would take it above and over the top, and then what dissatisfies your customer, and all those things. If you start thinking those through, you can define out a solid scope statement. So at this point in time, if you're doing professional project management or process improvement, you will define what's called a charter, okay? A charter is a very high-level document that's signed off by your sponsors that ensures that they understand and that you can hold yourself and the teams accountable to the path forward for that specific process improvement. So again, there's a scope statement that helps define what's in and out, a high-level charter, it's like a purpose statement for why you're doing what you're doing that will define out who's in, who's out, what's in, what's out of this process improvement. But for your personal life, don't forsake the define stage. Don't forsake the why behind what you're doing. Don't forsake the taking the time to define out what is the issue and what is it that I want to improve. Okay, that's number one, that's define. Number two, so again, it's Dmaic, D-M-A-I-C. D is for define, M is for measure. So measure looks at current process. Measure looks at what you're currently doing today. See, before you can get into solution, before you can get into the improvement phase, you have to take the time in your current place, the current place where you're at today, by measuring what's currently happening. So currently measure your process performance. Measure what's currently occurring so that you can compare it after it's improved to ensure that it's changed. So that measure is process mapping. This is what happens a lot during this phase. You can usually process map out what's currently occurring. So this is where you would do what's called discovery. You would go in, you would work with the other teams, the other departments in the organization, and define out or measure based upon conversation. Guys, walk me through a day in the life of. Help me understand the KPIs that you guys use to manage your success. Walk me through the process. What are inputs, what are outputs, and what occurs in between to get your job done in a given day. And during that time, there's a lot of things that can occur. You can do a capacity analysis. You can do a Pareto chart. There are just so many different tools that you can employ to actually measure process, measure performance, and see if it's meeting the specifications that you want, okay? Now, in the define stage earlier, you should have defined what should change, right? What you desire to change or what the focus should be. Make sure that you're keeping to that when you're in the measuring phase. So measure is really easy. You just look at what is occurring today. Now, it's a very big danger within these two first phases to get to solution. It's oftentimes very, very tempting to go into, wait a second, what is it that I need to improve? What is it that I need to change? Before you do that, you have to have a good understanding, a thorough understanding of what's happening today. Once you have that, then you can, using educated guesses and using an educated theorem, you can actually think through what is going to change and what specifically you want to have happen. But first, you have to become closer to a subject matter expert in that arena and help understand it. Otherwise, you're not going to make an educated decision. Okay, number three. So we have define, measure. The third one is analyze, okay? What is analyze? Well, analyzing is looking at the problem, looking at, based off the measurements you've taken, based off what you've learned in the discovery process, you're going to determine the root cause of that specific issue, okay? So this is where you do a root cause analysis. In a recent video, I talked about root cause analysis and the specific strategy of the 5 whys. Very powerful strategy to do a root cause analysis. Ask yourself 5 times, why? So if there's an issue, there's a root, if there's a surface cause, if there's a symptom, oftentimes if you ask yourself enough times, why did that occur? Well, why did that occur? Then wait, why did that occur? You do that 5 times, you'll get down to a root cause. Once you've done that, now you can start taking action on that analysis. There's also a failure mode and effect analysis. That's a very effective tool. There's so many different ways to actually do root cause analysis and really identify what is it that's causing that problem, that's causing what you've measured to underperform. So define, measure, analyze. Analyze is the funnest part. There's so many things that you can do during that time, taking the results of all the questions you've asked, taking the results of all your discovery, and actually backing it out and starting to think through the fundamentals of why. Once you've understood why, once you've gotten down to the root, now you can do the fourth thing, which is improve, okay? And this is where it starts again, getting really fun. Improving is where you can start to say, what would address or eliminate that root cause? Okay, so what is it that will take care of, after you've asked the 5 whys, what's going to eliminate or address that root cause? And then you start to implement that. So there are so many different ways you can do this. Looking at a process map, if you guys are familiar with that, what large companies do, they'll map out a process, often in swim lanes. So swim lanes would refer to departments, and they show handoff. So you can have a large interdepartmental process, look at how many times the process crosses the certain lines, and then you can say, how can I eliminate middlemen? How can I streamline the process, eliminate sub-steps, work towards less documents, less emails. You think through all the sub-steps that occur to make a process successful, and then you say, how can I automate? How can I delegate? How can I eliminate those given items so that I can actually be more successful and streamline that process? So that's the improve phase. That's when you get to use your creativity. Now you can finally start talking about solution, because under define and measure, you should have been really focusing on what that issue was, and then that analyze is kind of that next step. Analyzing those issues, just looking at what it is today, then finally you can improve and start addressing solution. Lastly is control. Control is by far one of the most important, because if you don't have buy-in and if you don't have that method whereby you can control and ensure that those that the changes that you're going to implement will continue, then it was all a waste of time. But control is ensure future process performance by implementing the improvement. And so it's the implementation phase. It's where you think through, what does quality assurance mean for that process? Use statistical process control, use measurement, create reporting, identify your KPIs that you're going to hold the team to, create a compelling scoreboard for success that the teams can use to continue to keep that process going. And that process of control, or that control phase, is where you're actually going to see long-term results. So again, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. Now I want us to take a step back. So I talked about that in a corporate environment. I talked about what it looks like to go in, analyze a very bureaucratic, concrete, muscle memory, habitual process within an organization, and begin to bump that rudder of change by doing these steps. Now think about it in your life. What does it look like? I'm going to use the example I used in the last teaching, and that was we're already well into the new year. Maybe you had some New Year's resolutions. I'm going to use the most common one, weight loss. And maybe you have already kind of failed. There's been problems. You haven't kept up to the routine and the New Year's resolution that you set. How do you take that problem and turn it into an opportunity? How do you take that problem and turn it into a solution? Well, let's use the DMAIC process on there. So first of all, define. Define what the problem is. What's the problem? Well, you're not living up to your New Year's resolution. Okay, so what's in and out of scope with that? Well, we're going to look at what needs to be done to get back in the gym, to get back into losing weight, right? And we're not going to get into all of the peripheral things, all of the other resolutions you've made, all of the other reasons that may not be happening. We're going to focus on that issue, sticking to your New Year's resolution. So then let's measure that. Let's measure what is the current performance that's occurring and what needs to change. So obviously what needs to change is you need to lose weight, measure what you're doing today, and say, well, I'm not going to the gym, I'm not doing this, that's not occurring in my life. Therefore, what needs to change. So now you're going to do the analysis. What is the root cause? What is the underlying cause? Ask the 5 whys. Why am I not living up to my New Year's resolution? Well, because I'm not going to the gym. Why am I not going to the gym? Well, because I'm trying to go too early in the morning. Okay, well, why is going too early in the morning not working? Because when I wake up in the morning, I have other priorities that are actually more important than going to the gym. I've got to, get the kids ready. I've got to do this. I got to do that. Okay. Why do you have other priorities, and why do those priorities overrule you going to the gym? Well, because it's just the wrong time of the day. And if I went a different time of the day, I could probably make it work. Maybe after work before the kids get off school. Okay. You've just done a analysis to analyze what the problem was. Now at that point, you can say, well, that's something I can change. So you've kind of mapped out in your head what your day looks like, why you're not going to the gym, why it's not working. And so now you can actually take that analysis you did and make an actual change. So now we say we're going to improve. So we defined, we measured why it wasn't occurring, we analyzed and got down to the root. Now we can improve that by saying, well, let me just switch the time I go. So now I'm going to get into work an hour earlier. I'm going to get the kids into school. I'm going to get into work an hour earlier, and I'm going to leave an hour earlier from work. I'm going to go to the gym at that point and then leave from the gym and pick up the kids from school. Now that's the improvement, okay? And now what is going to be the control? Well, now you have to give yourself some sort of incentive, so to speak, to make that happen. And so you're going to download an app that's going to track your progress, that's going to track all those extra things that you do in the day and ensure that you make it happen. Just a silly example to show you how define, measure, analyze, improve, and control can work in your life. Also, under the control, I would add this as well. I'd say have benchmarks. Benchmark your success. So say, I want to lose this much in this amount of time, right? I mean, there's so many other ways you could spin this, but that's really important that under control, you kind of create the reporting and KPIs for your success. I just use that as a silly example. You apply it to your own life. There's so many different ways you can do it, and you can go so much deeper on each one of those stages. For that example, you can take so much time to think through what exactly occurs at each stage. But that at the root is Dmaic, the define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And again, it's art more than science, meaning that take what you need from this, apply it to your life, but don't become overburdened with it. Don't turn it into a legalistic approach you have to take each time. Take the best out of it and use it for your benefit. Take the nuggets, take the things that you know are going to really serve you well based off of who you are, know yourself, and then apply those in your life. Well, hopefully this has helped. Today was definitely more technical, but I wanted to show you guys how large organizations control process and have continuous improvement in their processes. Hopefully you can apply a little bit of this towards your life. If you've liked this, press like, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, click that notification bell so you know whenever we go live. And for more information on us, who we are, what we do, go to visionpossible.net, and you can learn more about our Protegé program, see if there's events coming up near you, around you. We would love to meet you and go through your personal goals and your personal vision and help you make that possible. You can do that through our personal coaching. All that information and more on visionpossible.net.